Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am just Mike, and you are watching and you are listening to episode 14 of the Rock Out Wild Show. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button right where my name is and click that notification bell to get all your notifications for every single video that I upload and every single episode of the Rock On Wild Show. Also, you can share this episode and share this channel, share this video with your family and friends. Spread the word about the Rock Out Wild Show. I am your host, Just Mike, and as you saw the title of this very video, I am going to rank all 40 WrestleManias from worst to the best. Now, depending how long I will go for this episode, I will either do all 40 WrestleManias in one straight fell swoop, or I'll break this down into two parts, 40 to 21 and 20 to 1. We'll see how the time goes for this episode. We're almost about 90 seconds in, and let's get with the program. On the docket, we got on this day, for April 2nd, what happened in wrestling, music, movies, film, and television. And as I am recording this right now, it is March 20th, 2025. It would have been Chester Bennington's birthday from Lincoln Park. It is also Steve Borden, Sting's birthday as well. The first thing on the docket is a reaction to an old movie review of mine. I am going to react to my review for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, starring Andy Serkis as Caesar. All hail Caesar and apes on horses. So, what I'm going to do is start up my cam. And whoa! Let's see if I can adjust to this. All right. Well, I got a really good close-up on my face. Oh, my God. All right. So, I am going to open up the tab, and we will react to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So, let's go to present, share screen. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes movie review, share tab audio. And let's go full screen and let's react. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, action. If I had one word to describe this movie, that is ape-tacular. Ape-tacular. So Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is the sequel to Rise of the Planet of the Apes, where roughly 8 to 10 years have passed. And basically what happens is that the humans are pretty much extinct at this point. There's only very few humans left in the world. And so this is, the world of the apes as we know it. And what I really like about this movie is that it plays on that struggle between the humans and the apes that does it really, really well. In this movie, you have Caesar, the leader of the pack. And he is the most imposing figure in any action movie that I've seen. Absolutely. I mean, he is just that guy. When his presence is felt, it is fully felt. He feels very powerful in this movie. And anytime when Caesar speaks, it feels very special, and it has a lot of meaning and impact behind it. Yeah. That is the power of Caesar. And all the way through, this movie is very powerful and emotionally driven. Another actor in this movie was Jason Clarke, who was actually surprisingly well in this movie. He was a good actor in this movie, and I never really seen Jason Clarke in a starring role before, so this is something different for me to watch as this movie is progressing, and I like what Jason Clarke put out there on screen. Gary Oldman
is someone I like to discuss just for a little bit right here, because in the trailer they kind of portray him as a villain. He's clearly not. He's not a
Yeah, true.
clear
Very true.
cut villain as they made him out to be in the trailer. There's actually a little bit more to it than it meets the trailer when it comes to this movie, and when it comes to his character. And you can tell that, with Gary Oldman's character, you kind of know where he's coming from. He's a desperate guy trying to get the humans back to the way they
Definitely.
are. So that's the one thing that pulled off very well. It was the surprising factor of Gary Oldman and his character and his performance.
Yeah.
Another thing that really surprised me in this movie is that it wasn't as clear cut predictable. You think it's going to go one way, but then it kind of changes, not too much, but a little bit. There's a little bit of a twist. If you think it's going to go this way, it's clearly not. It's going to go this way, and then it's going to go this way. So I like that.
Yeah, I actually do like it when movies make you think they're going to go in one direction and then they go into a completely different direction, but in a good way.
It wasn't as predictable. Even though it came off as
Predictable.
predictable, it wasn't predictable as much as I thought it was going to be. There's a little twist here, there's a little twist there. So it left me on the edge of my seat. There was never a dull moment throughout this entire movie. Another big thing that was tremendous throughout this film was the CGI. I mean,
Oh,
sometimes in action movies, the CGI
oh,
is
yeah, the
overdone.
motion picture.
You can tell it's very CGI-ish, but with this movie, the CGI just feels actually real,
Yeah,
and a lot of it has to do with the scenery of the movie as well as the apes. Uh,
especially the apes.
Andy Serkis, who plays Caesar, I like how the CGI wasn't overlaying his performance as Caesar. So the CGI, I can't stress this enough, was actually one of the greatest CGI movies that I've seen, uh, which made Transformers look like pretty much crap, even though that was. So, heads off to this movie pulling off really good CGI.
Absolutely.
So, overall, this movie does some really, really excellent stuff.
No nitpicks?
Uh, Really emotionally driven scenes in this movie,
Definitely. Yep.
great action scenes in this movie.
Yep.
You had apes riding on horses.
That's the one.
Just picture that in your head right now. The other thing I like to mention about this movie is that when I was talking about power struggles earlier, you had the whole power struggles with the apes and the humans. There were also power struggles with the apes themselves.
Yeah,
There
that's
was this
right.
rivalry
Boba.
going on between Caesar and this other ape by the name of Koba. And Koba was
Yep.
pretty much the rebel ape in this movie. He was pretty much the Scar of the Lion King. Yes, I'm making that comparison because I
Yeah,
feel that
definitely.
comparison is very accurate.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen The Lion King, see it so you know what I'm talking about. So, even that one scene where Koba was rolling around, he takes the wine, he's drinking the vodka with the buddies. He's like, hey, I want to hang out with you guys. He takes the gun, and he just shoots him. That was the best scene in this movie. That was awesome.
Yep.
So Koba was another great ape. And what I really like about this movie is that sometimes I feel like I forget that these performances are apes and not humans. I mean, that is how great the apes were in this movie. I thought I was watching people
Yeah,
in this movie, so that
definitely.
is how great the apes were. And another thing I like to point out is that sometimes movies drag on too long and it gets boring. This movie did not do that at all. This was the perfect length of a movie. This was 2 hours long. If it was too short, it would feel like, yeah, that was probably rushed. If it was too long, yeah, it could have been dragged out. But I like how everything was paced out really neat and tidy. It was
Definitely. Yep.
paced very well. So a lot of great things came out of this great movie. I'm going 96 points out of 100. If you
Yeah.
saw Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, what did you think about it? Feel free to chime in and comment below. While you're at it, you can hit that subscribe button down below this video to get Mick Rocks.
Yeah. I do recall that movie being really, really good. Um, I can't remember though if that was the first or the second Apes movie with the whole Andy Serkis thing going on. It's definitely one of the two. I know the third one is War for the Planet of the Apes, and then there's Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I think Rise is the first one, Dawn is the second one, War is the third one, if I'm not mistaken. I think I am 99.9% right on that. Anyway, we're about 10 minutes in, and now let's do our usual stuff on episode 14 of the Rock On Wild Show. So, we're going to look at some stuff in film and television, music, and wrestling. First, we're going to go to film and television. What happened on April 2nd of every year in film and television? Well, let's see. Share tab. All right, so here's some stuff that happened in film and television history on April 2nd, which will be on a Wednesday when this episode airs. So let's see what happened. In 1902, the Electric Theater, the first full-time movie theater in the United States, opens in Los Angeles, California. In 1932, Tarzan the Ape Man released, starring Olympic swimmer Johnny Weissmuller in the first of his 12 Tarzan films. Let's see here. In 1950, WTAR, now WTKR TV Channel 3 in Norfolk, Virginia, CBS begins broadcasting. In 1954, plans to build Disneyland's first announced. Wow, that was 1954. Plans to build Disneyland first announced. And then in the brackets, it says C, January 26th. So there must be some other things regarding to Disneyland happen not only on April 2nd, but on January 26th as well. In 1956, Peter Ustov's play Romanov and Juliet premiered in Manchester. In 1956, soap operas As the World Turns and Edge of Night premiere on TV. A couple of soap operas for you. In 1960, KPEC TV Channel 56 in Lakewood Center, Tacoma, Washington, PBS first broadcast. In 1966, WJET TV Channel 24 in Erie, Pennsylvania, ABC begins broadcasting. Hey, here's a good one here. In 2001, A Space Odyssey. In 1968, that movie directed by Stanley Kubrick, starring Keir Dullea and Gary Lockwood, premieres at the Uptown Theater in Washington, D.C. And let me tell you, I watched that movie a couple of times. It is fantastic and one unique sci-fi movie and one of the best. In 1971, Dark Shadows, American Gothic supernatural soap opera, concludes an almost 5-year run on ABC. In 1973, CBS Radio begins on the hour news 24 hours a day. In 1974, 46 Academy Awards, The Sting, Glenda Jackson, and Jack Lemmon win. In 1978, TV show Dallas, starring Larry Hangman and Barbara Bill Geddes, premieres on CBS at a 5-week miniseries, or as a 5-week miniseries, I should say, and ratings success leads to a 13-year run. That is impressive for a television run. WrestleMania, in 1989, WrestleMania V, I believe that's number 5. Historic Atlantic City Convention Hall, New Jersey. Hulk Hogan beats Randy Macho Man Savage for the WWF Heavyweight title. I will get into that in just a little bit when I go over the WrestleMania topic in the main event. Here's another interesting thing for WrestleMania 1995. WrestleMania 11. Hartford Civic Center, Connecticut, NFL linebacker Lord Bam Bigelow. And the reason why I knew that was 11 is because I knew that was the WrestleMania that happened on all the with the context of that show. And we got another one for WrestleMania. Oh my God. The year 2000. WrestleMania XVI, Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim, California. Triple H beats The Rock, Mick Foley, and The Big Show in a four-way elimination match for the WWF Heavyweight title. That would be the year 2000. So, yeah, that was dubbed WrestleMania 2000, also known as WrestleMania 16. And lo and behold, we got another WrestleMania, the 2006 WrestleMania. In Allstate Arena, Chicago, WrestleMania 22. In Chicago, Illinois, that is. John Cena beats Triple H. Rey Mysterio defeats Kurt Angle and Randy Orton in a triple threat title match. Lo and behold, we got another WrestleMania. This is a WrestleMania theme night, for Christ's sake. In 2017, WrestleMania, it looks like 33. We have WrestleMania 33. Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. Roman Reigns defeats The Undertaker. That's right, that was the main event. And Brock Lesnar beats Goldberg, first wrestler to win both WWE and Universal Championships. And that's pretty much all when it comes to on this day in film and television, and a bit of wrestling there as well, on April 2nd. Now let's look at the stuff that happened in music. So, April 2nd, in the biggest music headlines, Gnarls Barkley. I remember when. You all remember that song, Crazy? It's right here. Gnarls Barkley established digital dominance with Crazy on this day in music, April 2nd, 2006. Duo Gnarls Barkley consisted of singer-songwriter CeeLo Green and producer Danger Mouse, saw the debut single Crazy shoot to the summit of the UK singles chart and remained there for 9 consecutive weeks. The longest day at number 1 in over a decade. That is cool. I actually do like this song, by the way. Initially released in digital form, the catchy tune became the first single to top the British charts solely from download sales and was later named the best-selling single of 2006 in the UK. The song was taken from the duo's Grammy-winning debut album, Saint Elsewhere. In 1977, we're going all the way back here in this decade, Fleetwood Mac topped the Billboard 200 with their 11th studio album, Rumors, featuring such enduring top 10 hits as Go Your Own Way, Dreams, Don't Stop, and You Make Love and Fun. The Grammy-winning album would become the band's most successful release, eventually spending more than 29 consecutive years on the U.S. charts and selling more than 40 million copies worldwide. In 1964, the Beach Boys recording Round, 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 I get around, ooh, I get around. They're recording I Get Around, which would soon become their first number 1 hit on the Billboard charts. Released the following month, the autobiographical song found the bands reacting to their newfound fame. By the way, I love singing just that part of the song, just to let you all know. In the year 2006, Watts Branch Park in Washington, D.C. was officially renamed Marvin Gaye Park on what would have been the late Motown star's 67th birthday. The park occupies a 1.6-mile-long area of Ward 7 in the northeast of the city, near where Gaye was born and raised. In 1964, the Beatles' 6th single, Can't Buy Me Love, broke the record for advanced single sales in the UK with 2.1 million people pre-ordered it. Unsurprisingly, the record shot straight to number 1. In 1987, virtuoso jazz drummer Buddy Rich passed away at the age of 69. Wow. And to me, he is the greatest drummer of all time. Like I put him at the very top. The Brooklyn-born musician was a flamboyant showman behind the drum kit, who was famed for his power, speed, technique, and ability to swing. He began performing as a 2-year-old in his parents' vaudeville act, and served his musical apprenticeship in the big bands of Artie Shaw, Tommy Dorsey, and Count Basie before leading his own group. Other artists he played with included Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, and Oscar Peterson. Oh, and there is a little thing on YouTube where Buddy Rich just chews out his own band, like cursing and swearing and everything. You have to hear this. I don't mean to get sidetracked, but it's something to really, really take note of. Go find it on YouTube if you haven't checked it out yet. And in 2001, Mariah Carey signed what was then the most lucrative recording deal in pop music history when she agreed to join Virgin Records in a 3-album deal reportedly worth $100 million. And we got some birthdays here in music. We got in 1928, Serge Gainsbourg. In 1939, Marvin Gaye. In 1941, Leon Russell. In 1947, Emmylou Harris. In 1963, Karen Woodward from Bananarama. 1967, Greg Camp from Smash Mouth. In 79, Jesse Carmichael from Maroon 5. In 1983, Young Jock. I think that's how you pronounce it, Young Jock. And in 1991, Quavo from Migos. So that's all the things that happened in music on this day on April 2nd. And now, let's look at some stuff that happened in wrestling on April 2nd. Since we're getting really, really close to the main event here, we might as well end on this day with a topic that I'm going to talk about later on. So, what happened in wrestling on this day on April 2nd? Well, in 1989, WWF WrestleMania 5 took place in front of 18,946 fans, with 767,000 watching on pay-per-view at the Trump Plaza in Atlantic City, New Jersey. It was the second year in a row WrestleMania was held at Trump Plaza, and the crowd was quiet for a lot of the matches. That is true. But more than made up for it during the main event. And we get a rundown of the matches that happened on this show. I'm not going to read all of this just to save time, but I'll give you a little bit of time to read it yourself. Or if you want to take a screenshot of it and read it after, feel free and go ahead and do what you want to do. And I will just talk about the main events that is highlighted right here. Hulk Hogan defeated Randy Savage to win the WWF Championship. The match ended via pinfall when Savage hit Hogan with his elbow from the top rope, but Hogan kicked out, hulked up, and hit Savage with punches, the big boot, and then the leg drop. With the win, Hogan became first man to win the WWF title more than once since Bruno Sammartino in 1973, and will hold it for a day shy of a full year before losing it in the Ultimate Warrior match at WrestleMania 6. In 1989, NWA Clash of Champions in Rain Kenshin was in New Orleans. The main event of the show saw Ricky Steamboat retain the NWA World Heavyweight title in a 2 out of 3 falls match against the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. The man was rated 5 stars. The match was rated 5 stars out of 5 in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter and voted the 1989 Match of the Year by Wrestling Observer readers. Don't get me started on Dave Meltzer, because I will continue on and I'll just get sidetracked. In 1993, CMLL 37th anniversary show was held in Mexico City. Dr. Wagner Jr. became CMLL World Lightweight Champion after defeating Quiroz Jr. in a 2 out of 3 falls match. In 1995, in Tokyo, Japan, Bridge of Dreams Dome Spring Full Bloom was held. On the show, the team of Terry Funk, Leatherface, and Soji Nakamika defeated Cactus Jack, Headhunter A, and Headhunter B in a deep breath, barbed wire board, and barbed wired baseball bat bunkhouse tag death match. What in the world is that? Let's move on. Also in 1995, WrestleMania XI was live at Hartford, Connecticut, in the Harvard Civic Center in Hartford, Connecticut. 16,305 fans were in attendance, with a further 340,000 watching on pay-per-view. And on the show, again, this is a show where I'm not going to read all the matches here. I'm going to save that for a lot of my thoughts of the show for the main event. But I will let you read some of that, or if you want to take a screenshot of it and read it afterwards. And, of course, that was the show where the football player Lawrence Taylor was on. So we got a couple here. In 1998, WCW Malice at the Palace was held in the Emily Arena, aka Ice Palace, in Tampa, Florida. Not strictly a pay-per-view in the traditional sense, it was a pay-per-listen, due to the fact that it was broadcast on the WCW website and was audio only. What? So you're listening to it, but not watching it. That's fascinating to me. Anyway, these events were not recorded by WCW, but fans present at the events filmed some of the matches. The main event of the night saw or heard Sting retain the WCW World Heavyweight Championship in a steel cage match against Hulk Hogan, brother. Also in 1998, the Madhouse of the Mid-South in Louisville, Kentucky hosted the IWA MS Louisville show. Suicide Kid defeated American Kickboxer to win the IWA MS Light Heavyweight title. And then Shark Boy became the new IWA MS television with a win over Chip Fairway. In the year 2000, WrestleMania 2000 was held in Arrowhead Pond, Anaheim, California, in front of 19,776 fans. We went over this not too long ago. Uniquely for WrestleMania, there was only one singles match on the card. I will get into that in just a bit. And even that was built as a cat fight on the show between two women. And there's a rundown of the matches. Again, I'll go over some of that in the main events later on. Again, if you want to take a screenshot of this still picture right here and read it after, or if you want to read it as I am talking, go ahead, feel free to do whatever you want there. And then we get to the year 2005. On day 2 of the PWG All-Star Weekend in Los Angeles, California, AJ Styles defeated Super Dragon in the main event to become the new PWG Pro Wrestling Guerrilla Champion. Also in the year 2005, CZW Trifecta Elimination 3 Prove Your Worth was held at the 2300 Arena, the former ECW Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. On this show, Sabian became the new CZW Junior Heavyweight Champion after beating Mike Quackenbush. That's right. His name is Mike Quackenbush. And also in the year 2005, in Ashbury Park, New Jersey, Ring of Honor held their Best of American Super Juniors tournament. BJ Whitmer and Jimmy Jacobs won the ROH World Tag Team titles from Jay Lethal and Samoa Joe, with Whitmer getting the pin on Lethal. And the tournament itself was won by Dragon Soldier B, defeating Black Tiger IV in the final match. In the year 2006, FWA Crunch was held at Broxbourne Civic Hall, Broxbourne, England, in front of only 300 fans. That is cool. In a three-way match for the FWA flyweight title, champion Ross Jordan, Pac, and Stevie Lynn all faced off against each other, with Pac getting the win and the belt. In the year 2000, also in the year 2006, WrestleMania 22, again we went over this, was held at the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, in front of 17,159 fans, with another 930,000 watching it on pay-per-view. It featured the WWE debut of CM Punk as one of the gangsters during John Cena's entrance. That's an interesting fact there. In a pre-show match, Viscera won an 18-man battle royal, outlasting Eugene, Gene Snitsky, Goldust, Joey Mercury, Johnny Nitro, Lance K, Matt Striker, Psychosis, Road Warrior, Animal, Rob Conway, Sho Funaki, Simon Dean, Stevie Richards, Super Crazy, Trevor Murdoch, Tyson Tomko, and William Regal. And there is the card that happened on the main show as well. Again, if that's something you want to read or take a screenshot of it and read it after, feel free. And I'll just slowly scroll down and let you read some of that in just a bit. And we got a few more here. In 2007, on Monday Night Raw, Tag Team Champions John Cena and Shawn Michaels retained the belts in a Tag Team Battle Royal, but then had to defend them again straight away in another Tag Team Battle Royal. This time, Michaels turned on Cena and eliminated him, meaning both men are out of the match. And the match is eventually won by Matt and Jeff Hardy, making them the new champions. In the year 2010, former WCW United States and television champion Chris Kanyon was found dead after committing suicide at the age of 40. God rest his soul. In 2011, OVW Saturday Night Special is in Louisville, Kentucky. Mohamed Alivez took the OVW television title from Rudy Switchblade in a hair versus title match, and then Adam Revolver and Ted McNally became the new OVW Southern Tag Team Champions, defeating Christopher Silvio and Rafael Constantine in a championship losing tag team must-split match. And in 2012, on this day, on the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania XXVII, Brock Lesnar made his return to WWE after 18 years, confronting John Cena in the ring and delivering a huge F5 to close the show. I actually remember that, by the way. Also returning on the episode was the wrestler formerly known as Albert/A-Train, Matt Bloom, this time as Lord Tensai. Good Lord. Lesnar's return was a huge success. Bloom's not so much. In 2016, Shimmer Volume 80 was held at A. Dean's Ranch in Dallas, Texas. It was a 12-woman single elimination tournament, with the final being a triple threat elimination match to win the newly created Heart of Shimmer Championship. In the final match of the tournament, Nicole Savoy defeated both Candice LeRae and Heidi Lovelace to be crowned the first ever Heart of Shimmer champion, and will hold the belt for the next 462 days. That's better than Punk's 434 reign days as champion. In 2017, WrestleMania 33 happened, and there is the match card right there, which I'm not going to drag this out for too long, but here are some notable wrestling birthdays. In 1990, Madman Fulton, 82, Jack Evans, and in 1980, Jody Fleech. And that's all the stuff that happened on this day in wrestling. And we're about 36 minutes in, and now it's on to the main event, and that is my ranking of all 46, of all 40, I almost said 46, of all 40 WrestleManias that happened for the past 40 years. Now, when it comes to WrestleMania in general, this is the granddaddy. This is the Super Bowl of football. This is the World Series of baseball. This is the Stanley Cup playoffs of hockey. Whatever sport you want to throw out. This is the biggest show that WWE puts on year-round. And what I have done for the past couple of years is I ranked every single WrestleMania from the worst to the best, depending how long this goes. We might end up doing this in a couple of parts. So we will do, for this episode of the Rock Out Wild Show, episode 14, we will do WrestleManias 40 to 21. And for episode 15, we will do WrestleManias 20 to 1. I think that sounds pretty good. Just to space out these topics and to space out this list as well. So let's do this. Now is that time where we're only about a few weeks away from WrestleMania 41. It's time to finally rank all 40 WrestleManias from the worst to the best. Coming in at number 40, the single worst WrestleMania of all time is easily WrestleMania 9. Few case in points here. This show had a weird, wishy-washy finish of a match involving Shawn Michaels and Tatanka. You had Doink the Clown versus Crush, which sucked. Razor Ramon versus Bob Backlund was a very disappointing match. You had that match between Undertaker and Giant Gonzalez, and that was a what the heck were you thinking match. The only good thing about that was Undertaker coming out with the vulture, the bird, in the entrance. That's about it. Oh, and of course, when it comes to WrestleMania 9, you can't forget Hulk Hogan inserting himself right at the last minute in the main event involving Bret Hart and Yokozuna. I'll give this show this. Bret Hart and Yokozuna alone, just that match in itself, is actually pretty good. Just that Hulk Hogan came in and ruined it right at the end. And the only other good matches to worth note are the Steiner Brothers versus Head Shrinkers, but that got sucked into the vortex of suck. That was WrestleMania 9. And somewhat to an extent, Money Inc. versus Mega Maniacs. So that was number 40. That is WrestleMania 9. Coming in at number 39 on this list, WrestleMania 27. This is a show that was all about building up to The Rock versus Cena a year later for WrestleMania 28, once in a lifetime, which turned out to be twice in a lifetime. I'll get into that. And pretty much it was, again, this was built around Rock Cena. The main event be damned, involving Cena and The Miz. And this show, It just sucked. It really overall just sucked. This show also involved the suckfest that was Michael Cole versus Jerry the King Lawler. You really built this WrestleMania involving two of your top commentators. That is pathetic. Oh, and Snooki got herself into a mixed tag team match involving John Morrison, Trish Stratus taking out Ziggler and Lay Cool. I'll pass. The only real standout match is Undertaker and Triple H in this show. And I think that Cody Rhodes and Rey Mysterio was actually a very underrated match, in my opinion. Coming in at number 38 on this list is WrestleMania 11. Again, I alluded to that earlier on in the topics that we were going over on this day in wrestling. And this show just didn't feel like a WrestleMania overall. The vibe of it just felt like a glorified Raw. You had matches like Bret Hart taking out Bob Backlund, and that was a big letdown, a huge disappointment. And Undertaker and King Kong Bundy was just a whatever match. Really nothing special about it. The only reason why Undertaker was facing King Kong Bundy was because Undertaker was feuding with Ted DiBiase at the time. So he had to face someone. And it was just an whatever match. The only good match on the show was Diesel versus Shawn Michaels for the WWF title. Solid match. It sucks that it didn't go on last because it was just playing second fiddle to Lawrence Taylor and Bad Bigelow from the main event, which was a solid match, but the show overall just wasn't all that good. Coming in at number 37, WrestleMania 33. All right, where to begin? Where to begin with this really bad WrestleMania? Well, a match that had great build-up to it with Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho went on second. And you know a show is bad when that happens. And of course, anything involving Cena was trash. I think he was involved in a mixed tag team match with, I think it was Cena, Nikki Bella versus Miz and Maurice. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that match at all. Seth Rollins and Triple H in the unsanctioned match was kind of dragged out for too long. Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt for the WWE title was an absolute dud. And of course, Roman Reigns and The Undertaker in the main event was an ultimate disaster. The only redeeming things about WrestleMania 33 were the Hardy Boys return, and Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg didn't suck. It only went a few minutes, and they done all right with it. Coming in at I was almost going to say WrestleMania 36, but in the number 36 position on this list, WrestleMania 13, where we saw the main event as Undertaker versus Psycho Sid. The big rumor is that Psycho Sid shit himself during this match. I wonder if that was actually true. It's not the greatest main event, yet not the worst either. And of course, he had Rocky Maivia versus the Sultan. That was just blasé an enhancement match for The Rock. It does have that overbooked vibe of pretty much let's get everyone on the card. And the only redeeming quality to this show is, of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart in the submission match with Ken Shamrock as the ref. Coming in at number 35 on this list is WrestleMania 2. This was a show that was in 3 different venues, New York, Illinois, and California. And it was just a complete mess and a disaster of technical difficulties left, right, and center, and with a largely forgettable match card. The only match you really need to see out of all the bunch in the show is, of course, the main event between Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy inside the steel cage. Everything else was very short and uneventful. Coming in at number 34 is WrestleMania 36. This is one of the COVID era WrestleManias that's not very rewatchable at all. Really because of just having no one in the audience here. The only 2 things you really need to see on the card, both night 1 and night 2, are the Boneyard match with Undertaker and AJ Styles, and the Firefly Funhouse between Bray Wyatt and John Cena. Coming in at coming in at number 33 on this list is WrestleMania 37. Again, another COVID era WrestleMania that doesn't have a lot to write home with due to, again, no one in the audience. You only need to see the show for Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's title for night 1, and Roman Reigns versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan for the Universal title at night 2, the main event. Everything else is either just take it or leave it. Coming in at number 32 is WrestleMania 16 or WrestleMania 2000. Easily one of the most overbooked, forgettable WrestleManias of all time. The only match that really stands out from the pack of overbooked tag matches is the ladder match involving Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys, and the Dudley Boys. That's the only match you really need to see out of this. And just for sentimental value, Eddie Guerrero in China in the ring, that was pretty cool. And considering what happened to them both in their careers. Coming in at number 31 on this list is WrestleMania 15. Yeah, another one that was a bad show, yet this show was saved by the main event. That was The Rock versus Stone Cold for the WWF title. The Brawl for All involving Butterbean and Bart Gunn is the single worst thing on this show, and everything else was just there. Not much to this show at all. Coming in at number 30, WrestleMania 35. I thought it was a decent show, but it's one of those WrestleManias that felt way too long. A lot of it could have been cut or trimmed out. But best thing about this show was that this was Kofi Mania. Yet in hindsight, Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan should have main evented for the WWE title. And the only reason why Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte were the main event in this show is because they were women, not because of the story. Let's get that straight here. And there was no reason to even insert Charlotte into this match or into this feud at all. There was no need. It should have been just Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey, period. And the worst thing about this show was easily Kurt Angle's last match with Baron Corbin. Coming in at number 29 on this list, WrestleMania 34. First off, Charlotte Flair had no business beating Asuka for the SmackDown Women's title on the show, and I stand by that. Jinder Mahal had no business becoming the United States champion. That should have went to Bobby Roode or even Randy Orton. Give him a bone. AJ Styles and Nakamura, what a dud that was. Braun Strowman's tag team partner was a kid in the audience in a tag team match. Need I say more? Of course I will. And Lesnar and Roman was the same old song and dance. The only matches to really take note on WrestleMania 34 are the mixed tag involving Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey versus Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, and the triple threat ladder match involving Seth Rollins, The Miz, and Finn Balor for the IC title. That's pretty much all you need to know about WrestleMania 34. It was an okay hit and miss type of show. We're getting a little bit more positive as the numbers go up here. Coming in at number 28 on this list, WrestleMania 32. This, I thought, was a half-decent show where we finally get Zack Ryder getting his big moment, becoming Intercontinental Champion. We get a decent Hell in a Cell match with Undertaker and Shane McMahon. Roman Reigns and Triple H main eventing was a decent match, but probably could have been trimmed quite a bit. But the worst thing about WrestleMania 32 is easily Brock Lesnar versus Dean Ambrose. That was utterly disappointing. Chris Jericho and AJ Styles, they already wrestled a couple of times before So this was nothing special. The 6-minute tag was absolute filler. And of course, Charlotte Flair sucking up the joint. And a quick you missed it match with The Rock. An average show at best. It's one of those WrestleManias that's middle of the road. Coming in at number 27 is WrestleMania 17. Yeah. Here comes the unpopular opinion about WrestleMania 17. I have it all the way down at 27. Sure, it's a WrestleMania, and I know people regard this as the best WrestleMania of all time, but I highly disagree. This is the single most overrated WrestleMania there is. This WrestleMania represents everything that was wrong with the time in professional wrestling. This represented the death of WCW and ECW. The only reason why they've done that crappy ending of the show involving Stone Cold Steve Austin turning heel and aligning himself with Vince McMahon was because they could do it. This was the nail in the coffin and easily, like I said, the most overrated WrestleMania there is. But this WrestleMania does have its ups. The TLC match involving Edge and Christian and the Dudleys and the Hardys is easily the best match on the card. And the only other match worth noting is probably Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit. Coming in at number 26, WrestleMania 25. Half decent show, but a disappointing one as well. This was easily a one-match card, that being The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, and I could talk about that all day. Why Triple H and Randy Orton had to main event was a complete head-scratcher, to say the least, but the biggest head-scratcher coming out of 25 came with Santina Marella, a man dressed in women's clothes, winning the Women's Battle Royal. Make it make sense. Oh, and of course, we get the disappointing complete letdown of a match between brother versus brother. That is Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy. Yeah, it has its good moments, but it's overall a disappointing show. Coming in at number 25 on this list is WrestleMania 26. At least with this show, they corrected the mistake from the previous WrestleMania to have The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels main event the show. And it ended up being the best match on the show. And on the show as a whole, it was nothing more than an average show with one of the worst WrestleMania matches of all time. That is Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon in a no-holds-barred lumberjack match. Oh my God, that was bad. And I'll leave it there. Coming in at number 24 on this list is WrestleMania 20. It's like the yeah, but kind of WrestleMania. It's a show that it was good at the time, but not so much anymore. And I'll explain it just a little bit here. It's kind of tainted because of the tragedy involving Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, but mainly Chris Benoit. When we see the visual of the two of them celebrating in the ring with the confetti falling, didn't feel right. And of course, this show had easily the single worst WrestleMania match of all time, that being Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg with Stone Cold as the ref. But the best match had to go to Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero for the WWE title. And having The Undertaker show up as The Undertaker and finally getting rid of that biker Undertaker is also a decent thing on the show as well. Coming in at number 23 on this list is WrestleMania 22. I thought that this was a decent show. The standouts in this, easily the best match of the show, was Edge versus Mick Foley in a hardcore match. And we also get the match involving Trish Stratus and Mickie James for the women's title, where you see the fan reaction was starting to turn in Mickie's favor. They were cheering Mickie and they were starting to boo Trish. Trish was going to win anyway, so they love Mickie James. And of course, Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon in the no-holds-barred match was a lot of fun. Yet, when it comes to WrestleMania 22, this also had its downs as well. This show has a main event involving Triple H and Cena, where you start to see that Cena is starting to get booed, and the match itself was just average at best. The casket match had no real stakes to it involving Undertaker and Mark Henry because you knew that Undertaker was going to win this match. And the Boogeyman somehow got a WrestleMania match with Booker T. Need I say more? Coming in at number 22 on this list is WrestleMania 4. This WrestleMania was based around a tournament to crown a new WWF champion, and you wonder why WWE only done this once. There's a reason for that. And while in theory this tournament was something different, something unique, it ultimately turned out to be a show with way too many matches, and a lot of them going only a few minutes long. And the only match you really need to see out of WrestleMania 4 is the main event involving Macho Man and Ted DiBiase, where Macho Man finally got to hold the WWF Championship. And coming in at number 21 on this list is WrestleMania 29. Ultimately, this is a decent, very decent, yet disappointing show with the main event that defeated the purpose of once in a lifetime involving The Rock and Cena. This was their second match, and it was for the WWE title, and it was very predictable. We all knew John Cena was going to win this. It was the safe and predictable way to go. The only match you really need to see coming out of WrestleMania 29 is The Undertaker versus CM Punk. The rest, you can take it or leave it. So when it comes to WrestleMania 29, I might watch it again sometime in the future, but not too much. This is also a show that I felt also very, very long, and a lot of it could be trimmed down quite a bit. So that is my list of my top 40 WrestleMania matches from, actually, not matches, my ranking of all 40 WrestleManias from worst to the best. This is part 1. This is from number 40 to number 21. Next week, I will go over the rest. So on episode 15 of the Rock Out Wild Show, you will see part 2 of this ranking. That is ranking my favorite WrestleManias from number 20 to number 1. And that is episode 14 of the Rock Out Wild Show. And I'm going to leave you with a quote with perspective of the day. The wisdom that comes with age is a treasure beyond measure. Every wrinkle, every laugh, line tells a story of resilience, love, and growth. Embrace the lessons learned and the experiences gained over the years. Your journey has shaped you into the remarkable person you are today. Remember, you hold a wealth of knowledge and insight that can guide and inspire others. Cherish the wisdom of old age, for it is a gift that continues to shine brightly, illuminating the path ahead with grace and strength. That was episode 14 of the Rock Out Wild Show. I am your host, Just Mike. And on a final note, to all of you watching and listening to this all around the world, get plenty of rest and always do your best.